Welcome to O-Teatron. I am Mona Merhi. I am a visiting professor at James Madison University. I am a researcher, a theater maker, a dramaturg, and I came up with the concept of O-Teatron. Let me first start by welcoming the guests who are in the room with us in ATHE, and also all the attendants on HowlRound platform. Before we start, let me just give a brief introduction about what O-Teatron is. It is a platform that aims to enhance access and visibility of mediated performances originating from different global contexts. It also endeavors to create meaningful conversations while bridging connections and acknowledging the different aesthetics of doing theater and being on the stage here and now. In the first edition, O-Teatron focuses on Syrian stages at ATHE 2025 conference named The Real. Particularly, we are talking about the performances resulting from the post-uprising momentum. And in our second episode today, we are pleased to have with us Mudar Alhaggi. Welcome, Mudar. I'm happy to have you with us, and allow me to introduce you. Mudar is a Syrian playwright, dramaturg, and cultural activist based in Berlin. He graduated from the Higher Institute of Dramatic Arts in Damascus in 2005 and co-founded several theatrical and cultural initiatives in Syria and Lebanon, most notably the Kid Project and the Future Stages Workshop. He has written and directed theatrical and radio plays, and has participated as an artist in residence at prominent European institutions such as the Delphina Foundation in London, and so on and so forth. In 2017, he founded the organization Nauras to support migrant artists, and in the same year, he co-founded Collectif Maqloube, the producer of The Return of Danton. His stage plays include Don Juan, or Don Juan, Bronze, 6 Days in the Eyes of the Devil, When Farah Cries, Your Love is Fire, and of course, The Return of Danton. But lately, he wrote The Long Shadow of Alois Brunner. We were also supposed to be joined by Oussama Ghanam, a dramaturg, director, professor at the High Institute of Dramatic Arts, and he is the playwright of Shams and Majd. But unfortunately, there was a technical problem that hindered the process of sharing his work, but we still hope to have him and many other theater and performance artists from the Swana region in the near future if O-Teatron is meant to persist. But we are here today with Mudar, the playwright of The Return of Danton. And let me start by kind of giving an overview about your journey from Syria to the exile, the journey of exile, if I may say. You left Damascus to Beirut, and then to Turkey, and then to Switzerland before settling in Germany. Can you tell us a little bit more about that journey? And why did you choose to be in Berlin?
Hi, Mona. Thank you for the introduction. So yes, I left Syria in 2013. In 2013, after the situation in the ground in Syria started to be too complicated, and it was very difficult for me to stay there as an artist, as not really activist, but as someone who was really standing against Al-Assad authority. In that time, I had to leave, but in my mind, I thought that it will be very soon for me to come back to Syria, to Damascus. So I moved first to Beirut, actually, where most of the Syrian artists found it as okay. This is could be our shelter, the location where we can keep our activities going on, and but also close to Syria, where the context in Syria and Damascus is not different. So I stayed in Lebanon for 2 years. Within those 2 years, like things start to be clearer that we will not be back soon. Things are becoming more complicated in Damascus, in Syria. And also to stay in Beirut became also more complicated regarding to papers and residencies and legal conditions. So I had to leave again to move from Beirut, and so I tried different like spots in maybe in the world and in Europe. So I stayed a bit in Bern in Switzerland, a bit in Sweden, but then finally I decided to go to Berlin. I felt like okay, that's it. If I wanna stay for a long, I know Berlin. I love the city. I feel like it is a city where I can freely continue my work, my career, but also at the same time, it is Berlin is be, it became like another center for Syrian artists who moved to Europe. So, and then I found myself in Berlin, and since then I am uh, stable here. Yeah, and I always think that I wanted to be in Berlin, so this is my choice.
And Berlin, as you have mentioned, is the hub for many Syrian artists, and Berlin supported, like there was a kind of a policy in a way
Right.
with institutions to support Syrian artists until a certain moment. And through that, Collectif Maqloube was founded, or Collectif Maqlouba in 2016 was founded. Could you tell us about why was it founded and that collaboration with Theatre and the Ruhr and the circumstances surrounding that founding moment?
It was first of all, in 2016, I started, I was writing a new piece called Your Love is Fire.
Yeah.
And I was arranging with other Syrian theater makers a production of Your Love is Fire. In the same time, Theater and the Ruhr was starting the initiative of creating this collective, and so we have met, and we had the opportunity with Theater and the Ruhr, with support also from the government in the state. We called it here in Germany NRW, North Rhine-Westphalen. And the idea was to have to give the Syrian theater makers who fled, who had to flee to Germany, to give them the opportunity to continue their professional career as a theater makers. Like so, in the meaning that, so we continue our career in our way, let's say. So because for any of us as Syrian theater makers in exile in Germany, in order to enter the German scene, the German stage, this is of course very complicated process. It's not easy, and maybe it's not possible for many of us, where we just arrived, like most of us, 1 year in Germany or 2 years. So this was the idea behind the collective, giving a platform for artists who needs this platform. And since then we started this. This is collective Ma'lube. We are like Syrian theater makers, but also we are open to work with artists from other nationalities, or with German artists. But the basic of our work is always that we are questioning the time in the Arab region, and mainly I can say that the Arab Spring and all the questions came with the Arab Spring. That was our main concern, main focus. Yeah, so that's since 2017 until now. Of course, the relationship between us and the theater and the rule is completely different. So in the first 5 years with them, we were more like a small group working under the umbrella of theater and the rule. And after 2022, we had to be separated, and separated in a way that we became an independent body, legally and artistically, and of course financially. Sorry.
Yeah, and this is informed in a way by the changes of the funding priorities, but
exactly.
But we will get back to that later, because there's a very, very specific question around that. And within the productions of Collectif Ma'lube, and by the way, Collectif Ma'lube means upside down, and there is a Palestinian dish called Ma'lube, and it's kind of a Levantine dish, if I may say. I hope I'm being accurate in that description. So the Return of Danton was produced during the pandemic times, and it was a co-production with Shabak Festival in 2021. The Return of Danton is one of the films that were available on O-Teatron. But what's really interesting is that that moment of the pandemic that constituted a kind of a crisis moment for doing theater across the world was an opportunity for diasporic artists such as you and me to watch performances of like their co-citizens and co-artists across the world, and hence the reason why we are being able to watch this performance today. So how did that happen? Can you tell me more about that kind of opportunity of the pandemic rather than a crisis?
Yeah. Yes, it's true. For me, like, first of all, like being as like the opening of Shabak Festival, and Shabak Festival is more like maybe the biggest Arab theater festival in London. It was, of course, it was an opportunity for us, but in the same time, it came with the pandemic, and me personally, why I was writing the text, to be honest, I didn't think about the pandemic. I didn't think about the the, the festival, especially about the pandemic. I tried to not to think about it. I tried to write as I will do the premiere on stage in a very normal conditions. Otherwise, it will be like difficult for me to imagine a space between the actors on stage or something like that. So my choice is to work as I am, just like doing it in normal conditions. But what you just mentioned is completely right. And I just discovered this after the premiere, after the opening of the show, that like the big number of Syrian audience were able to access, to see the show. This is for me was like a shock, because since I left Syria, my main problem, my main missing element from my artistic process was suddenly became here. That was like it's a shock in a positive way, because like there is like many reviews were written about the show for the first time, for the very first time, that I have this amount of reviews in Arabic. And this is very crucial part of the process for me. It means a lot after those reviews, and for sure the work after, it will be completely different, because I experience the reaction of my audience. And now here we need also, of course, to talk about the term my audience. Who are my audience? I mean, at the end, of course, it's matter of context, and for sure, any story in the very first level, my audience is the Syrian audience.
Thank you, Mudar. And we have a specific question later on regarding about audience reception and how is that challenging when you move across cultures. Let me just give a little bit of context about the Return of Danton for the people who didn't see the performance yet. The Return of Danton is about a performance that has a group of theater artists living in Berlin trying to stage The Death of Danton, which is a play by George Buchner. But it's not only a meta theater for me, it's a meta theater, because a big part of the performance is about the director Iyas, who is trying to rehearse a presentation for the donors to get a funding for the performance. And I wonder about that use of meta theater. I feel that as a playwright, your use of meta theater countered in a way the conventional way of using meta theater in Syria in particular. And I don't want to kind of give a generalization about the topic, but if we look at the work of Saadallah Wannous and Soirée for the 5th of June, or what is also recognized as an evening of entertainment for the 5th of June in another translation, the use of meta theater is intended to trigger the audience. And there is a lot of, that element of theatricalization. Your use of meta theater is very, very insular, and it asks questions that are really like very, very specific, and that put the audience in a form of impasse. how do you explain your use of meta theater in the play? And how do you see that as a generational shift in the aesthetics?
Yeah. I think this was not my first time doing it this way, and not also my last time. And I think I was not aware of my choice of my decision going in this direction.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there is one important question that we start to face maybe after 2011 in general, maybe after we start working in exile. The story is the question about the story we are telling in our theater. Which story I tell, and yani, if I tell you how it started with me, the structure of the Return of Danton. First of all, I started to think that me as a theater maker in Germany, why don't I go to Danton's death as a very classical piece, German piece, and work on it. And it will be very, very special starting point, since we are talking about the French Revolution. A story about French Revolution by a German playwright, and it will be done by a Syrian artist who recently experienced a revolution. Just like after this moment, I start to imagine the whole set. It was clear for me the story is not Danton's death, it's more what's going on inside the creation process. And it was clear for me that, okay, this is my story. And here again, I come back to the first question, which story I tell, because now yani, I faced this question many times in my work, and always because what does it mean for me to work on a fiction rather than taking the reality as it is, I just put it on stage. Before we were saying that's yani, I think before we saw this, we saw this way as something that let's say not artistic enough. But now even the boring parts of the reality, it's more maybe honest and more ability to reach the audience and to touch the audience and to open a debate with the venue, with the people.
I really felt when reading the play and when watching it that all these questions that were asked in the performance by all the characters were Mudar's question, were your own concerns as someone who relocated from one space to another, who is trying to struggle with language, but also trying to redefine who my audience is, what is the significance of theater now, which leads me to my next question about the inability to tell. And I'm going to kind of quote a couple of lines from the character of EEST, who is the director, when he was kind of looking at the paintings of the French Revolution. And this is what he says, quote, "I could stare at the images, looking at every detail, and at the same time, I couldn't look at a single image coming from Syria. I noticed that as I read and researched the subject, my mind would wander. I would think as if I relied on Danton's death to find the answers for the difficult questions that the Syrian revolution addressed." And then he says, what does revolution mean? What does it mean that a revolution succeeds or fails? There seems to me that you borrowed the French Revolution to kind of to talk about as a surrogate for a history that is difficult to tell and that is traumatic to share on the stage. To an extent, the stage becomes a stage for telling the inability to tell. And yeah.
Yeah, right. Right. I do agree with the way that you describe it, or yes. There is a political level, of course, but behind this political level, there is like a human level. Since 2011, since the very beginning of the revolution, like saying the word revolution, in the same time it was happening, I remember there was, in parallel, there was a question in media between the people in the street. What is a revolution? Is what's happening now, it's what we Syrian people did, is it a revolution? Can, if we say it is a revolution, can we compare it with a big revolution from the history, like the French Revolution? Can we say this is a revolution, like this was a revolution? For me, it was interesting that we had this question, even though that's like until now, by the way, until today, until after the fall of Al-Assad, the question is still there, still here, still exists, and it's still strong.
It's even more important today.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. Yani, I don't have maybe an explanation why this question is very strong, why we are questioning our like our reaction regarding our freedom, why we are questioning our way dealing with our freedom. So this question for me was like, let's say, a starting point. And of course, in this way, this is one part, and the second part that always dealing with the Syrian issue, for me personally, was very tough task. Tough in emotional, psychological meaning. And I always try to find a way, like, not to allow working on the Syrian issue to affect my my emotional يعني,
My emotional state.
yes, and my psychological like life situation, because it became like a real need. I think not only for me, but for everyone to continue what's going on in Syria and in the Middle East is terrible. We feel like we are losing. We feel we paid uh, a lot more than we must pay. So the task of dealing with this issue on an artistic creation, it's very challenging. So always, not always, but I remember I was aware that yes, maybe going to a historical historical materials could help me to create this space between maybe me and the real events going on in Syria, or let's say at least less painful. Less painful, because it's true. It's true. I mean, until now, I am personally, I'm not able to to look at a picture coming from Syria and to analyze it in a way that I did when I was working on the Return of Danton, in order to understand the time. I was I with my research, I had many. We didn't have pictures from that time, but we have these drawings that explain you the atmosphere in France in that time. So yeah, I think it was somehow a way just to deal with
The
the pain.
trauma.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's also the level of complexity of the history. And we have like the whole region, whether it's Lebanon or Syria, I feel, if I may say, that we have that contention in telling our history, because our history is not documented as it should. And there is a lot of ambiguity starting the 1967 war, and so on. We still have 3 more questions. I have many more questions, but I would love to leave it to the participants in the room, and also the attendants at HowlRound. Speaking of the element of the humanity, like you talked about the political element, the philosophy of what a revolution is, but then you said there is the human aspect. And there is a lot of human aspects in the text, because the play is very, very evocative of the daily processes and obstacles faced by the artists who relocated from their homeland to a foreign country. Whether we are talking about language acquisition, whether we are talking about donors' expectations, and how was the environment, like it's kind of the new challenges of coping. How was the environment of working inside Syria different? And can you tell us more about the challenges a Syrian or any Arab artist like faced in Germany, and how are things changing now?
Yeah, and let's start from Syria. How was it before? I mean, it's completely different because uh, of the producing atmosphere or the producing conditions in Syria. First, we don't have in Syria, as you know, like we don't have this productions or producing mechanism, that we don't have this market or this big scene. Our only producer was the state, the government, by Al-Masrah Al-Qawmi, or the National Theatre, and with like very small attempts from very small independent groups or individual artists. So, and um, uh, so completely different atmosphere. But the biggest condition was the political condition in Syria, that you are obliged to work in the frame that the government already decided. This is your frame, this is your space that you can move in, and no way to go out. This is first. And second, of course, that theater in Syria is not like, is like, even the audience of theater in Syria was like very small group of audience, because of like, after like almost 30, 40 years of controlling the whole cultural scene in Syria. Of course, theater, there was a very big gap between theater and people. Theater was something a bit for al-nukhbe. شو النخبة?
For the elite.
Yeah.
Theater was something for the elite.
Exactly. So then when I moved to Germany, things start to be completely different, dealing with I think maybe before is in Syria we were doing theater because we wanted to do theater, because we loved theater, but we never, I personally, I never considered myself as a professional theater makers in Syria. Not because, like, very simply that I cannot earn my living from theater normally in Syria. Theater makers usually they are more like they're doing maybe TV or cinema beside doing theater. In Germany, I think it started to become different, but the conditions are much helping us, but in the same time we start to face a different kind of difficulties and obstacles, because we are doing theater out of our context. This means that we are addressing an audience with different memory, with different interest, with different language, with different experiences. This is the first level. I'm talking about the relationship with the audience, but there is also, we have the
production model as
the
well.
production conditions. We have like how to finance your work, how to find a producer, how to find the money, how to promote your work. Of course, beside the very big element, which is the language, which was from the beginning our main concern. Because usually we use, when we do our theater here, we use this screen with subtitle on it, but this always means that the audience cannot focus with you. They need to move between the screen and the actor. So then we start to think, can we find maybe another artistic solution for the translation on stage? So those kind of conditions and questions we face most of the time lead us to the question, was it a right choice to continue our career here in Germany? What is the meaning of just like fighting all of these conditions around? I mean, the question is very big, and I have to say it's almost in most of the collective work. It is a very crucial question. But always when we think about it from not only an artistic point of view, but also from a bigger political point of view. As so, before we are artists, we are refugees, we are Syrian citizens who are paying the price of political action, let's say.
Thank you, Mudar. And in response to your question, I don't know if that responds. I also have the same questions. What are we doing? What am I doing as a professor teaching theater? And that's very, very, very challenging moment and disheartening moment in our history. But if it comforts you a little bit, I just received a kind of a message from HowlRound live stream. I don't know the name of the person. I only want to thank Mudar for the Return of Danton. I think it's extraordinary. And I think that at a certain moment, that element of raising awareness, of creating that conversation, redeems a little bit that feeling of questioning what we are doing and why we are doing it now. So let me move to the next question about the audience expectations. And I think you talked about it a little bit. In a way, but also before that, I also have to kind of piggyback to the production models and highlight the work of an organization that is called ATHE, Independent Culture. There is an extensive, for those of you who are interested in the room and HowlRound, there is an extensive amount of research made by ATHE around the production models and around the concerns of the Syrian artists, wherever they are. And they did a fantastic job, not only in research, but in production, in supporting artists in Lebanon, and most recently they are focusing on productions inside Syria. Yesterday, we skipped kind of mentioning the role of Itijahat. Oussama Halal contacted me afterwards and asked me to highlight that element, and I kind of second that opinion because I particularly did research for Itijahat around those production models that we are talking about. So that's just a kind of a signal towards what we have missed yesterday. And I'm going to add shortly a link to Itijahat Independent Culture. So about that element of that audience expectations, how challenging it is to write for an audience. Who is the foreign audience today? And do their expectations change? Did their expectations change years ago until now with all the political changes that are taking place in the region?
Yeah. Well, I can't say if the expectations of the audience or how much it's changed, but maybe from our journey since 16 until now, we see how like the general interest is how it's like going from a zone to another zone. As I told you before, when we start to be an independent body as a collective, we needed to apply for money for a fund for our productions. Before we didn't need, because the theater were doing this task, representing us,
Yeah.
apply for a money.
And they have a specific funding from the
From
city.
the ministry, from the culture ministry in the state. And then we applied by our own, like as an independent Syrian theater group. And we didn't get the money. We didn't have an official answer why. But I have heard from many like German colleagues or experienced people who just say that there is another interest now. It was like we started to have like Ukrainian artists by the as example in Germany. There is so the Syrian issue is becoming less sexy, less trendy than before. So this moment just I'm just saying as an example of how this like affecting our work. But in the same time, I have to say, in Mulheim and Ruhr, which is the city where Theater and Ruhr is, and where we show our work always since 17 until now, I can say that we have an audience there. Now there is an audience for the collective, and this audience are mixed Syrian and German, and they just go like they share and they interact with us. So like it's different if we are speaking about people or we are speaking about institutions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have many more questions, but I think that right now it's the right moment to make room for our guests in this virtual space, but also our like the people who are watching us on HowlRound to ask questions if they have. We have Sarah Fahmi, welcome Sarah, Christina, Samer, Kumars, and Hala in the room. If you have any questions or any comments that you would like to share, please go ahead. And I'm going to add some of the interesting links meanwhile, so you can have some resources as well. Okay. While some of our colleagues are preparing their questions, I will jump to my next question. Your last production is The Long Shadow of Alois Brunner. And it's kind of, it's the playwright who is a character who disappears in the play. But before that, Alois Brunner is kind of a very important figure, traumatic, actually horrific, who kind of was one of the major figures in the Nazi regime, who fled Germany to Syria. Would you like to tell us more about that element of digging into world history to unravel on stage? Like, how did you come up with all that element of research?
First, I have heard the story of Alois Brunner. It was a shocking story for me, about this Nazi war criminal who escaped to Syria after the Second World War and who became a refugee in Syria, and who also became a consultant of Hafez al-Assad. And there is also stories and rumors say that he was part of creating the security system in Syria and the secret service system in Syria. I'm just like, I have heard about the story where I was a refugee in Germany. I am a Syrian citizen, but I'm a refugee in Germany. So for me, it became like an interesting story that maybe first of all, I felt like it could be like it has some action or suspense that could be my next theater piece. So I started the research about Alois Brunner, about his time in the Second World War, his role, his crimes, and his time in Syria. His time in Syria was a bit like, it's a bit hard to find a documented informations about him. But in the same times, I was facing the question. Again, I go to the same in the same circle. Why I'm doing this play about Alois Brunner? What does it mean? So at the end, again, I decided that my story, or the story I want to write, is not the story of Alois Brunner. It's more the effect of Alois Brunner's story on my personal story. So at the end, this was the long shadow of Alois Brunner. The difficulties I faced writing about him and writing theater in general, while you are writing in exile, the difficulty of doing theater in exile, the human being meaning of being in exile. Sorry for, but this is all the long shadow of Alois Brunner. Yeah. We premiered, I think, in
2024, March 2024.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
told me that you have new, you have a tour right now all over Europe.
Yes. Now we are touring over Europe. We in Italy, in Bulgaria, in Kosovo, in Zurich, in Oslo, and very soon we will be also in Cairo. I think in October.
Yeah, and it's really quite interesting to see how that element of connection, of like relying on another region's history to tell your own because you are unable to tell it. And this is also repeating in this performance, but also another element is being repeated. And I kind of link that to a performance that is not available, that was not available for our audiences, but that I was very, very lucky to watch, which is Your Love is Fire, where the playwright also disappeared. So what's that story of the playwrights disappearing? Can you tell me about that?
I don't know really. Yeah, as I mentioned before, like really it's about when like could be one of our everyday question, which story I tell. Like, do I go to fiction or um, um, it could be this competition between reality and fiction, and so always now, maybe my answer that it could be for me an impossible task to go for fiction. Why it is impossible task? I don't know really, but it's more about for me the main and the most important thing that I must always feel is to keep this honest communication in my work with the audience, with the people. Only in this way I can continue. So this means that most of the time I feel like I am opening the process to the people. There is a story I am telling the people, but there is also the story of how this story was created. It is another story, but it is like the same importance, maybe. I can't hear you.
I have a question from Samer.
Yes.
Samer Al-Sabri asked me to kind of ask his question. He's curious about Mudar, about your impressions, whether some artists are returning to Syria in the last few months, and whether there is a potential for a new production model in the coming years. So let's start with the first side of the question, whether there are some artists who are returning back to Syria in the last few months. Do you have any idea about people who or artists who, after the demise of the dictatorship, returned to Syria?
Yani, of course, there is some. I don't have any special case or that I know that someone, a friend of mine or an artist that I know who really moved back to Syria and decide to live in Syria again. I don't have any case like this. Yeah, this is the first part. And I understand why. There is two levels. First, that it could be sometimes it's difficult for the people because they already see they are stable in exile in Germany or anywhere else. It's not easy if they have like maybe family or children or sometimes because of a legal issues that they can't, like in my case it's illegal. It's now I am a refugee in Germany, and if I come back to Syria, then I will lose my status as a refugee, so then I will not be able to come back to Germany. So I need to wait until I have the German citizenship or the passport in order to be able to. But there is also another level of the answer that for many artists, I can imagine that maybe nothing had changed in Syria now. Like
Yeah.
the political situation is not so different of the time of Al-Assad. It has another shape maybe, but at the end it's the same. Yani,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's difficult. Uh, I mean, not only speaking about theater, but in general, and not only also about art. In general, situation is more complicated, and still people, I think, needs time to understand the scene, to understand what's going on, to understand who are those people that they are controlling the country now. Completely different model of it's something more than dictatorship, I think.
Yeah, if I'm allowed to say, and if I'm allowed to link that with yesterday's conversation where we had Noor Amrad with us and who said, like, it's kind of a different level and it's totally different. And I think that we do have right now a new, like a kind of a heightened level of another reign of terror. That we are witnessing, or that our Syrian brothers and sisters are witnessing. The second part of the question of Samer, you are asking about the new production model in the coming years. Are you asking about in Germany or inside Syria?
Inside Syria, is there potential for something new to emerge? Or really, I mean, it feels like it was answered already, in the sense that if not much has changed politically, maybe artistically and culturally, nothing has changed either. So, but yeah, I was asking about Syria. In Syria, يعني في بوادر لتغيير
فنيا.
Yeah,
فنيا.
yeah. Thank you, Samer, for the question. And unfortunately, I maybe the only answer I give you is I don't have an answer. I have also your question. I have the same question. I think nothing changed maybe politically, so this means like not a lot changed in artistically. But I think if I come back to my personal view, so like I think me personally, inside me, there is a lot of change in the last 7 months. I can say, starting from the shock from 8th December till now, um, it says a lot about our ability to understand the scene, the political scene, to understand our own structure and identity, ourselves. So just like since last December until now, it's a series of shocks and shocks and shocks of what's going on. I mean, the massacre happened in Syria was a shock for me, but the biggest shock for me also is the way how the community reacted to the massacre. This is a biggest shock for me personally, and this I think it will lead to a big change artistically. But what is the shape of this new method, let's say. Let's see. I don't know. At least we hope. We hope that we continue theater. So, but how we are continuing theater? Maybe this is the question. I hope I could answer your question.
Mudar, allow me to answer part of your question because I did the research about the productions inside Syria and the situation of artists who are living inside Syria. Indeed, the production challenges did not change. The production models are still almost the same, even though sometimes more difficult. But the Syrian artists who decided to stay inside Syria did not stop producing. You have Oussama Ghanam, with all the difficulties surrounding that, and it's really unfortunate that we couldn't have him with us today. He would have been perfect to answer that question. And there is also Atijahat who's trying to be active in the region. However, still it is very, very, very challenging to make that performance element sustainable, in a sense that, do we see new aesthetics? I think that yes, a little bit, but we need to kind of wait and see what happens in the coming years as well. I think that we have a lot to discover, but we also have a problem of gathering archive material and resources, which is one of the problems I faced in my research. That are reliable, of course. We have a question from Hala. Hala says, I'm very interested in your assessment of the production conditions you are currently working in and how the shifting attention or priorities of funding bodies have created challenges for Syrian theater making in Germany. It's not unlike the forced competition between different minority groups in the US trying to gather support for their community theater making. I'm curious, what, if any, collaborations across cultural or refugee groups you have taken on with your collective? How might that change the level of support or exposure the collective garners? Would you like me to translate, Mudar, or
just to brief, if you give me a brief of the question.
Hala, correct me if I'm briefing in a kind of a not precise manner. So I think that Hala is asking about the changes in the shifting attention and the priorities of funding. What kind of challenges did it create? And if that element of cross-cultural collaboration with other entities, with that kind of offers a different opportunity. Am I doing it right, Hala? Am I briefing your question?
Yes, Mudar, I was just saying, I guess what I mean is the example that you gave earlier, the funding bodies did not approve your proposals, Ashan. There's shifting attention to Ukraine, for example. That's not an explicit reason, but it's an implied reason. I was wondering if, as a result of this shifting financial landscape, or shifting priorities, that you maybe have decided to reach out across different cultural groups or refugee groups to try to create collaborative theater pieces that can maybe get back some of that financial support.
Yeah. Yes, I understood. Thank you. The shifting in the priorities for funding, if I understood right, for sure it affected our work, let's say, which I can say sometimes there is a good part and bad part of it, where like good part where you are like having conditions you need to deal with, you need to think about your audience, about your existence in the German scene. You need to find the solutions. So this push you to try to analyze the scene, to analyze your relationship to your audience more, to deal, to try to find, as I said before, as example, an artistic way for the problem of the language, as example. Um, so, yeah, this is part of it. But also, you need to be aware that this situation, these conditions are not limiting your freedom in deciding which story you tell and how you tell the story. Yeah, this is one of our main concerns. Like having a collaboration with other refugees group or other institutions working on the same conditions. We had these experiences before. Yes, it could be a tool or a strategy, but the situation is not, I mean, like here in Germany, there is an examples of another groups or let's say refugees theater makers groups like Maxim Gorky in Berlin, like Kammerspiele in Munich. But all those experience didn't last long time. It's like 3, 4, maximum 5 years, and they stopped. They didn't continue because they didn't like achieve. Maybe I'm not sure of this, but I think maybe because they didn't achieve this moment when they became an independent body. So the case of the collective is somehow unique now in Germany. I hope I answered.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Mudar. We have a question. I think that's from HowlRound. Just a second. Do you see any signals in the horizon if there is an open channels for collaboration between Syrian theater makers and Syrian sociologists and philosophers? And is there any highlighted names you are collaborating with?
Highlighted names in the meaning of
the first section of the question is about collaboration between Syrian theater makers, but also sociologists and philosophers. And the second side of the question, if you have any names. So I think the second question is related whether there is or there is not.
I mean, not in the meaning of collaboration, let's say.
Yeah.
It's in the meaning of I can say somehow most of the time when we say collective, I can describe the work, our work in like in a collective method, collectively work. So this means that we shape our speech together.
Yeah.
But from different point of views, from different maybe tools or voice. And yeah, of course, we have like in the Syrian context, we have like, there is a philosophers, but we consider ourselves as a philosophers, as an artist. But I mean, we are all involved in the everyday issues, and we have our own vision and our own questions, and the process always where the dramaturgy became the link between the artistic and the political. This becomes itself where like we became artists but philosophers in the same time.
Okay, great. I think we have reached the end of our session today, unless we have questions from the room. Mudar, I know that today was a little bit difficult for you because you went to the ER before coming in here and you are a little bit tired and sick. So thank you so much for making
No,
this.
thank you. I'm fine. I'm fine and very happy. It was good end of the day for me.
Great. And also it was like I'm really grateful for making that effort for us. And I'd like to end this session today by remembering what's happening in Gaza, but also in Suwaida in Syria right now, which is a very, very, very alarming moment. And we lost in Lebanon a Lebanese artist who's a playwright. His name is Ziad Rahbani, and he's a great musician. And his work marked 3 generations, and he was extremely engaged with the political momentum. So that's a kind of commemoration of his work, if I may say. And I don't see the word commemoration as the right one, but for the lack of a better word, it would be good to remember him in this platform in particular. I'm going to just write his name. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I have to remind everyone that at 3:30 p.m., me, Samer, and Hanan Al-Haj Ali, we will be having our session about Al-Hakawati Theatre, the 2 case studies from Palestine and Syria. If you are able to join, we would be very, very happy to have you. Thank you so much. And we will be seeing you in 1 hour and a half. Thank you, Mudar.
Thank you, Mona. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.